Hey everyone, thanks for joining Cindy and I again for another Wednesday night edition of How To. And tonight's topic is how to stay healthy when traveling.
Yeah, like that's all you hope for when you go on a trip is please don't let me get
Yeah,
sick or injured, right?
right. Exactly. It's a
Like,
perfect
no,
topic.
no need for that. But it happens, and there are some things that you can do to like be smart about it, and protect yourself or pre-plan. So we like to plan. So let's talk about some of the things you want to do before you leave on your trip to stay healthy.
Yeah, some of the things that you should do is if you don't or you're not sure and you haven't checked yourself out, go get a checkup because honestly, if you haven't been for a while, maybe you're not aware that you have a deficiency in something or, there's a
Yeah.
multitude of things that could pop up just in a routine checkup. And if you haven't done one, and I know a lot of us sometimes put that off because we're like, we're feeling good. It's important to go do that.
Yeah, especially if you've been like, oh, I just haven't bothered to, check on that thing with my knee or that weird thing that's going on, and I just kind of ignore it. Probably don't want to travel, especially out of the country with something that you're kind of iffy about. So get all those appointments on the calendar. Meet with your doctor, make sure that you're healthy, make sure that all those things you have in the back of your head are all clear. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer, but like you said, it's stuff that we all put off, and it's just a smart idea to double check all of those things. And I think on that same note, I want to talk about prescriptions. And if you have prescription drugs that you're taking, whatever it is, um, sometimes you just need to look and see, do you have enough to make you through
Yes.
time frame? And I mean, I know my mom stressed out about it a couple of times. It's like, well, I'm going to be gone and I'll run out, what do I do? And I was like, just talk to your doctor because they can like give you another prescription. I know they normally don't do that, maybe they only give you 1 month at a time, but they'll figure something out so you can travel.
Right,
So
right. And that's exactly what I was going to say. My dad too, he'll count out and do this a couple
yeah.
weeks. Really make sure you leave time in your schedule. Don't wait till the day before, but leave time to sort it out and double check when it's going to expire or check that bottle and count out. Like I normally take this every day. I need to have X amount. And again, if he sees that he's going to run short, he'll just get on the phone and oftentimes his doctor will call in based on this and they'll give him the extra 6 or 10 or whatever it is that you need to get you through until you come back.
Yeah, and if you're traveling stateside, lots of times the network of pharmacies, you can even pick it up on your trip if you've, neglected it, because we've done that before too. Out of the country, not as easy to do, but sometimes you can have someone else pick it up and send it to you. But just something to put in your mind and look at those medications to make sure you're taking, that you have all of that, and that you've talked to your doctor about what it is. And most of those, if you are traveling with prescription drugs, it's a good idea to keep the medication in the bottle with the prescription on it. So
Right.
bring that with you. Don't just pop those pills out and put it in your thing. In some countries, you might want to check to see, because even prescription medication is not okay. So there's very few countries that have that issue. I think I want to say it's somewhere in Asia. I don't know if it's Singapore or Cambodia, but there's a
That's
couple
a good, yeah.
couple of countries that are a little wonky about some things that we normally think are okay. They do not. And I'm talking about things that, are mood elevators. So that's a prescription drug, may not be okay there. So definitely double check with your doctor, and then look with the country that there's no restrictions there, because you need
And,
all that stuff.
right, exactly. And even some I recently you've seen in the news issues with like CBD products or those kinds of things that are legal technically in the states, in certain states, but in other countries it's come up like going through security. People, I mean, some
Nope.
scary stuff. You don't want to be
Yeah, so check all your
so
prescriptions. CBD, actually, that's a good point, because a lot of that is, like it's over the counter in most places in the country now, and not in every country in the world is that possible.
right, right.
So just making sure you understand what you're taking and what the laws and rules and regulations are on it, and do if you really need it, can you go there, right?
Right,
So,
right. I think
uh,
that's really important. Also, along those same lines, depending on what country you're traveling to, double check what types of shots you may need. Or,
yes.
I think things like for malaria and some of these other things, you need to have already gotten a shot or particular
You
Yeah,
might need a,
immunization against it.
yeah, I mean, obviously there's some vaccines that you need with the current situation, but you may also need, I don't know, malaria. You may need
Yeah,
uh,
there was some other
of
ones.
some of these, like even though you may have all your shots, you may need to have to prove that in some countries. Not most countries. I want to say probably the biggest portion of places you're going to won't have that, but it's always wise to double check what the rules and regulations are. And the State Department's website is a great place to go to look at that. You can talk directly with some of those embassies and ask, what's the current state of the world and what do I need to bring? What kind of proof of my vaccinations, proof of
Certain shots that you
like, because I know
need.
some places need a yellow fever.
Yes, I was thinking that, like some of the countries in Africa, South America, some of these countries that have, you're exposed to different things, and so you definitely you may not even get in without proof of these types of things.
Right, right. So double check that. And then the other prep thing, the last thing I think on our list is health insurance. So likely stateside, you're good, but not a bad idea to check with your health provider to see what in and out of network things you have available, like what's possible for you to get. Leaving the country is a whole other ballgame. If you're on Medicare or something like that, that doesn't work out of the country. You might need supplemental travel health insurance. Now, this is not the travel insurance for your canceled flight or lost baggage. We're talking about real travel insurance for medical issues, and they run the gamut. I think we probably should do a talk just on that at some point. We bring this up quite often. It's not super expensive typically.
No, it's not. But the benefits can really vary. So it's again important to know what may be possible. And again, depending maybe on your age, what could potentially happen that you may want to be evac'd out and come
Yes.
back to your own doctor here. And some plans cover that, and some plans don't. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
anything. You need to get and talk to someone that's educated, because it's going to be hard to read through the pages. I would rather discuss that with someone over the phone that really knows the ins and outs.
Yeah, I always make sure I can get evac'd out if there's a problem when I'm leaving the country, because if you have a real issue, if I'm going to be sick for more than a couple of days, I don't want to be stuck in another country. And I know that the insurance that I've gotten provides evacuating you out if you're going to be there more than I think 3 weeks, and then it will also provide for someone like a family or friend member to come if you can't leave. So and that all depends on what the situation is. So you need to look at the insurance, and this will make your family feel better, but you'll feel better knowing
No,
that.
you'll feel better knowing that should you, something really uneventful, if I was to fall and break my leg somewhere and now I really can't continue with the trip. I mean, you can't let a lot of days go without getting that properly taken care of. You're going to feel better seeing your own doctor in the United States, someone that you maybe know and trust, or a facility that you're familiar with.
Right, right. So now that you've gotten, I think that's all we had for prep, just making sure you know the requirements, make sure you've got all your stuff, your prescriptions, your doctor says you're good to go. And now we get to go on our trip, and there's some things you can do when you're actually on your trip to stay healthy. I mean, obviously just being smart about your body is important, but things like, eating right, I think that's really important. We can talk a little bit about that. A lot of people get sick when they travel. I mean,
And
yeah,
it's often just from a meal or something. So again, being number one, being aware of your body, but other countries may be not preparing the food the same way. Water is often
big
a big problem in other places. Even if you're in the United States and you're camping, you can't just grab water from the stream. You really need to educate yourself about the water.
Yeah, what the water is like in that country, and is it drinkable, and should you be buying bottled water, and where should you be getting that? And just because everyone on the street can eat and or drink that doesn't mean you can, because their system is used to that. So do a little research to make sure if you're in a South American and Asian country, some of these other countries, they're not operating in the same way that we are. So you may not, it just may be different. Again, they may be fine, but you're not okay.
Right.
And then I wanted to just bring up too that a lot of people have stress with travel, not because they're stressed or panicked or anything, but there's that angst that happens like a few days before you leave, and then flight over and all of that, that can cause your body to disrupt a little bit. So it's not unusual to have an upset stomach or,
Right.
that kind of thing. And so just know your body and give yourself a little bit of time, eat a little lighter, drink a little more water, get a little rest, and just know that that is something that's happening to you.
And it's completely normal. Most
It is.
people
It happens to
experience
me.
this.
I travel all the
Right.
time and my body just like slows down and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And
Right.
not everything is working the way it's supposed to. And sometimes you're not eating the right routine. You know what I mean? Like all of that
Right.
starts to change. So
Right.
I do think you just give yourself those first transition days a little room.
Yeah.
Be
And
delicate with yourself.
right. And be delicate, because it's always tempting when you're traveling to want to like indulge and have, a wonderful dessert or some food that may be extra rich that at home you wouldn't eat that. So
Yes.
be mindful of that and think maybe about, I know for myself, oftentimes think about sharing your meal or sharing a dessert. Have a taste of it and go easy, because you know what? You can always order or buy more food, but if you overdo, a lot of us that were raised
Yeah.
to like, oh my gosh, the food is here, I got to eat it or
Yeah.
do
Clean
something
the
with
plate.
it. Yeah, clean the plate. It's like that mentality is not so good for your
No.
stomach, and you're going to
No.
pay for it later. It's not pleasant.
Yeah. And I try to let that like indulging stuff be like a day or two after I arrive so that my stomach and my body has like adjusted to where I'm at. That
Yeah.
makes it easier for me to do that. And vacations and travel is when you indulge and you try new things. And I'm a very adventurous food eater. I will eat things even when I don't know what's in there. I'm totally fine with that. If other people can eat it, I can eat it. But you have to take your time, right? If you're not used to spicy food, if you haven't eaten this, don't eat too much, especially if you've never tried it, because even weird spices can throw your body off.
Right.
I mean, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. It's not that you can't eat it. It's eating a huge helping of it that may not be good for you, and maybe not doing that all day long, right? Like have some things you're familiar with for like breakfast and lunch and dinner, kind of splurge, and then go back to some more familiar things. So you're not, flipping out your entire system.
Yeah. And just and remember to stay hydrated. I know flight
Yes.
attendants talk about this all the time, the importance of drink lots of water, because you really do get dehydrated when you're flying, you're at altitude. And sometimes I know we hesitate to drink too much fluids because it's like we don't want to use the restroom, but it's really important to keep sipping that water. And as soon as you land, really take on a lot of water. Oftentimes, that first day or night that I've now landed, I'm drinking a lot of additional water, kind of flush my system, hydrate
Yes.
it.
And bring that water with you and drink during the whole trip. It will help your body, especially if you've eaten something kind of wonky, right?
Yeah.
You have extra water, it'll help flush your system through that. So really good idea. Just keep drinking. Water, teas, those are good as well. And then and I know we talked about this, like adjusting your schedule a little bit before, right? And you do that before you travel, adjust what you're sleeping at.
Yeah, right. I start even before I travel, especially, and it sounds crazy, but West Coast to East Coast, 3 hours is kind of a big difference in my day, because if I'm used to getting up even at 6 or 7 on the West Coast, which is kind of early for most people, that's already like 9 or 10 on the East Coast. And by then, if you're on a vacation or you're traveling or you're out photographing, you want to be out enjoying your day already. So now
Right,
your body's kind of like, wait, what's going on? I haven't had my
right.
coffee yet. Same with sleeping, it just shifts everything. So maybe a week or 3 or 4 days, I'll just kind of start adjusting, like go to bed a little earlier, and maybe you won't fall right to sleep, but just trying to tell your body, like, turn off the lights, close your eyes, make the room dark, and then same thing in the morning, set my alarm just a little
A little
bit.
bit
Start,
earlier. And they do say like shifting just your meals
yes,
to the new time zone, even if you can't do the sleep, if you just shifted your meals, that will help you, set your rhythm when you arrive
yeah,
and reset that. So for jet lag, that's a really good idea, is to, start adjusting things. And then when I'm on the trip, I like to have some sort of routine. I have a little bit of a routine of my own at home. We all do, right? You have like the things you do when you get up in the morning, you have the things you do before you go to bed, you might eat meals at a certain time. Try to stick to some of those same things on your trip. Your body will thank you for eating 3 times a day if that's what you do.
Yeah.
I always eat breakfast no matter where I'm at. I always eat and I always have coffee in the morning. So, if I skip that because I got in a hurry, and if I do that too often, my body starts to get upset with me.
Right.
I like to walk in the morning. If I skip that, I mean, I can do that as part of my trip, but I try to be mindful of the fact that I kind of have a routine and I should probably maintain some of that. Part of it's also for my sanity. Like it makes me feel more normal that I'm doing some of those things. So,
Yeah, I completely agree that, setting up that routine and kind of trying to keep some of that when you travel is super important. I mean, if you're used to like in the evening to wind down, you have like a cup of ginger tea and you read a little bit, make time to do that and set that time aside for yourself. You'll really feel more refreshed. You'll, get
yes.
a better night's sleep. And that those aspects are so super important. You'll enjoy your trip so much more if you're feeling good, feeling healthy, and because as you and I both mentioned earlier, you're already like in unfamiliar
Yeah.
places, different beds, different pillows, everything's, there's other things that are different.
And that routine can make you feel sane. It can be like, oh, your body and your brain all knows what to do. It's so incredibly healthy to have like just a little bit of that going on. And then we were talking about, carrying all the stuff with you, things like sunscreen, have a hat, bring your water bottle when you're out and about. It's really easy to just run out for the day and then you're starving because you couldn't find a place to eat and it took you 4 hours to find a good, I mean, how many times
Yeah.
did you wander around 3 or 4 times, like, where are we going to have lunch? Now you're like 2 hours in and I should have eaten. My body was ready to eat 2 hours ago.
Right.
The tour didn't get done and now we couldn't find parking or whatever my problem was. If having almonds or a bar in my purse will make a huge difference, and a little bottle of water keep me from getting hangry, which happens. And
I
sun.
agree. That's super important. Take care of yourself. Like, think
Yeah,
ahead. I hate to be like that. It's kind of like a mom
yeah,
mentality, but take what works for you. If you're used to needing some little snack and
mhm.
plan for it, just assume that, you're traveling, you get distracted. And you're right. It's like you're with a group or even by yourself, you're like, you end up walking more and enjoying the day. And then all of a
Yes,
sudden it's like, oh, wait, oh my gosh, now
I
I'm
haven't eaten. Yeah,
starving and I'm
yes,
getting angry and nothing,
nothing,
exactly.
and now I can't figure out what I want. And
And
then
your brain won't even like,
yeah,
yeah,
and then I'll eat too much or whatever because I was too hungry. So it's really helpful. Bring the water, bring a little snack. And honestly, on shorter trips, if I'm only going to be on a week or so, I throw these snacks in my bag.
yeah,
Now, if
I
I'm
did too.
gone longer, I might get the snacks when I arrive. I'll walk into a store and pick up a few little like packaged things or whatever and put those back at the room. So I have a few things to take with me. I bring a portable water bottle that I refill. And then sunscreen and a hat because you're outside. I mean, I don't even care whether you're in Iceland or where you're at. The sun is still a problem, and you still should probably have sunscreen on for sure. And especially in the heat of the summer, your body will thank you. And a hat to cover your face and keep that heat off you will really make a huge difference in how you feel. Um,
Yeah, and just think ahead, again, depending on your destination, pre-plan what something that you may need. If it's going to be pretty chilly, you might want a pair of gloves and,
right.
stuff those in your bag, comfortable socks and shoes. And shoes can make a huge difference. And it's important. We all get tempted to like want to get a new pair of shoes. We'll get that new pair of shoes like 2 to 4 weeks before
Or a
you go
month.
or a month and literally start walking around your house or wear them out for your morning walk. You'll thank your feet later because you need to work them in and get used to them.
Yeah.
They're stiff. You don't want them to rub in the wrong place because when you buy them or try them on at the store or order them, a lot of us order online now and you get them and you think that they're the style, those are the same as I got before, but they the slight
Well, and
difference can rub your foot in the wrong way.
the
And the
ones you've got at home, you've been wearing for a while, so they're stretched out, they've molded to your feet.
yeah,
The brand new ones are all like, crisp and they look pretty, but they're harder. So
yeah,
definitely, I mean, rule number one, never travel with brand new shoes. But socks and even just like moving around, like I always get blisters when I travel. It's like a regular thing. I travel with moleskin, the little blister stuff. I always bring it with me. I always have some in my purse because it's inevitable that I'll be walking and I'm like, it's not a big day. I'm just going to go to the museum and wander around and then we're going to walk back. And I end up with a blister on the bottom of my foot, on the side of my foot, some weird thing. So be prepared for that. That's probably going to happen because you're not used to maybe walking this far, or maybe you're spending more time on cobblestone, which is amazing.
yeah,
That's different, right? Or
yeah.
hill or whatever is shifting your feet in those shoes and you end up with that. So it can ruin a trip to have a foot problem like that. So can ruin a foot.
Yeah, oh, definitely. You'll be super uncomfortable, you'll be grouchy, and then, even though you had something amazing to go see or do the next day, your feet are yelling at you, and that's gonna overtake your brain. Or,
Yeah.
if
And
you didn't pack layers, one of the women once we went to Santa Fe, and same thing, she's like, "Oh, it's Santa Fe, it's gonna be warm." Well, no, it's in February. It can be quite cold. And, she had these thin pants. And so, thankfully we went somewhere and she could get something. That's not out of the question. But had she just packed in the heavier jeans, problem solved,
problem solved. Check the weather. Definitely check the weather for sure and make sure that you know what you're up against, with
Or
that.
have options, that Midwest mentality we have, Cindy, of layers.
Yeah.
It can be super cold, the weather, and especially it seems like even in the United States and other places, we're experiencing a lot of changes. June in Boston, normally would be warm, but there's been days now where it's been quite chilly, can
Right.
be rainy and cold. You want to be comfortable. So if you have things already packed that you can work together and you have options.
Yeah, that'll help you feel more comfortable. And then don't be afraid to like bring the things that make you more comfortable. I mean, I know that sometimes I have a ankle and foot problem sometimes, so I sometimes have to wrap it. So I always bring my tape. Sometimes I don't use it, but I bring a little bit of it so I can, in case my feet are hurting. And I'm, like, these are things I know that if I'm going to be on my feet a lot, I need to protect them because that's going to kill the trip if I can't get out and walk.
Right.
And if you're not comfortable or if you get sick, and I mean, if you start to get sick, don't be afraid to just go ask like the front desk or go into a museum and talk to a docent, somebody that works there, and ask where to go to get cold medicine. I mean, you don't have to suffer through any of these things if you didn't bring it along. You don't probably need it in most places. They'll have whatever you need. And it's not the end of the world. I've been sick on trips. Obviously, you don't want to be so sick that you don't leave your bed, but it may mean that, for the next couple of days, I'm not feeling so great. So I'm going to slow down on my trip and not do,
Right,
things
right.
for a couple of days while I sleep in a little bit, take, more leisurely time. So, and sometimes I guess you have to call it quits. I don't think I've ever done that where I've left a trip because I was sick. Actually, on my last trip, when I was on my train trip, I almost came home because I twisted my ankle.
Oh, that's right. That's
I was
right.
like,
Yeah.
I even booked a flight because my ankle, I twisted it and it was swelled up, and I was taking trains and getting on and off. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way I'll be miserable. And I booked a flight and I was coming home. And then 2 days later, before I got on the flight, or the next day, it was significantly better. And I thought, oh, as long as I wrap it and take some aspirin.
And know what your exit
Yeah.
strategy is. I think that's an important point. If you're traveling
Yeah.
by yourself, you often have a little bit more leeway, but if you're joining a tour or a group, finding out, what the options are, or at least if it gets really bad, talk to the tour guide, the leader,
Mhm.
find out how convenient, because it is often possible to leave the trip if it's that bad and you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and you don't want to ruin your trip for, I mean, that was why I was considering booking, or why I booked the flight, and why I was considering abandoning my trip. I was about 2/3 of the way, but it was just because I wasn't going to enjoy it, right?
Yeah,
And it was like, if I'm going to spend the money and the time to be here, I should be enjoying it. And so you have to decide if you can continue on, right? Like
right.
sometimes you'll stay, and then because you stayed with your wrist when you
Yeah,
fell.
I did.
You did the whole thing. And I mean, I had a guest on my trip in Iceland who, she passed out on the airplane. We ended up in the emergency room, the whole thing, but she continued on the trip. We got her a clean bill of health from the hospital. She called her doctor. She was with her sister-in-law, and every after checking everything out, she just decided that she was feeling healthy enough to continue. So sometimes it's okay, to have a mishap and even end up in the hospital,
Right.
and still keep going.
And keep
um,
going.
and hopefully you've covered your travel insurance, and you've got yourself with all of that, and your family and everybody knows that you're going, and you still have all that going. But I think there's so many, you can still have a good trip even if even if that
Yeah,
happens.
even if there's a mishap, you can pick up and recover. I recently tripped and fell in Boston, and had I been paying more attention, maybe that wouldn't have happened, but maybe it still would have. And
Yes.
you know what? I just made the choice. It wasn't, again, with the doctor in Boston and just having been through a recent experience, I was like, you know what? It's a cast. I still have my legs. I can walk. And as long as
Yeah.
my other members of my group are willing to assist me with the things that are too heavy. And even the hotels, they were super lovely. And they're like, do you need us to go get your bags and put them into the car? Whatever, however you have it laid out, and be helpful. And all the airlines, again, it's super easy to, when you get to the airport, like in my case, coming home, it's like, hey, you know what? I just need someone to carry my carry on because it's too heavy with just a one shoulder. And
Right.
literally escort me to the next flight, put me in the plane, whatever you
Yeah.
need. So
Yeah.
it's always good to ask, talk to the people, that you're staying with, because even if you need extra medication or an over the
Mhm.
counter type thing, I know um, a woman, when we went to San Francisco for a weekend, she ate something bad, and I don't know if it was a 24-hour flu or something.
Yeah.
Literally, the rest of us went out for the day. She stayed in, slept. The front desk like brought stuff up and left it outside of her door. It was amazing.
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah. So, and it's that kind of stuff that's really helpful, right? Like if you just reach out and say, I need some help. And then, maybe you have to spend one day, in your room, and then you're back to business.
right.
So I think we've covered it. It's almost 6:30. I don't know if we have any questions. I see, there's a couple of people here, Heather and Leslie. So it's really great that they were able to join us.
Oh,
Thank you
nice.
guys. And if you have any questions, let us know. But I think, it's really just about, preparing, like we always say, and being willing to ask for help when you need it.
Right. And that's just being prepared, and treating your body, taking care of yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone else can indulge maybe, and
Yeah.
you just say, hey, this isn't for me. That's totally fine. It's
and it
better.
and it happens to everyone. So all the preparation in the world, you can still fall, you can still get a cold, you can still catch the flu, you can still get step on something. All those things can happen. If you've done a little homework before you leave, you'll feel a lot better when those little things happen. Hopefully it is just a little thing, and you can bounce back up and continue your trip, and you'll have a good story. So sometimes
Right, exactly.
that just turned into great stories. Like going to the pharmacy in Vietnam was a fascinating thing, because when we went to get cold medicine, she gave it to us in like a little paper bag, like just gave her
Oh,
3 or 4 tablets and just put it in a little tiny, like a paper, like something you would put money in, you know what I mean? Like a
oh,
little paper bag, and she just wrapped it up. And I was like, this is the most bizarre thing. There's no package on the shelf. There's no nothing. We
oh,
walked up
that's
to this
odd.
woman
Yeah.
in this window and explained what our problem was. She's like, oh yeah, cold medicine, and then just put a couple tablets in there, and it cost a couple of dollars. It's a story, it's a moment. So even those worst situations can be their
Yeah.
travel stories.
Exactly. So we
So
appreciate all of you joining us tonight. If you want to meet other travelers, every other Saturday we do host a coffee chat. It's
Yes.
completely free. You can find the Zoom link on our website, which is the-travelcollective.com under events. And it's every other Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. It'll convert to your time. Mark your calendar. We'd love
Yes.
to meet you. We'd love to hear your stories and share. So
Yeah. So we'll see you all in another coffee chat.